Chapter 148 to 150. As much as I was annoyed at having to fight Moro since he was somehow connected to Tawa, it was something that would have to happen eventually, better to get it out of the way now that we're here. Sage Kakarot, got any helpful information on Moro? Goku not much other than some weird magic abilities and his ability to absorb your energy, although he doesn't seem that experienced when it comes to combat. Trunks well then what are we waiting for, let's quickly kill him and continue our search for Tawa. While I was all for quickly killing him, that fool Kakarot insisted on fighting him some more. Goku wait, let me fight him some more. Trunks but Goku we need to get rid of him quickly. Goku I know that's why let me fight him so that he'll be forced to expose more of his abilities. I'm sure everyone here knew he just wanted to continue fighting with Moro, though what he said was actually smart, so we decided to hang back and watch the fight, and while he may be absorbing our energy, all of us were concentrating on suppressing the amount he's able to absorb so it's minuscule. However, if things seem to be getting out of hand we'll interfere. Moro so you plan to fight me alone? So be it, it'll make dealing with you guys that much easier. Goku well then I think it's about time to get serious then. Kakarot then transformed into SSGSS, which he had managed to master like Vegeta, giving him increased power and very little energy expenditure compared to before, though the action of transforming had caught ex-Vegeta and ex-Kakarot off guard. Ex-Goku so this is SSGSS. Its power is impressive. Ex-Vegeta oh please, it isn't that impressive. Once the battle commenced, Moro could barely keep up with Kakarot, who had now started taking this battle seriously. However, even though that dumbass Kakarot had the clear advantage in the battle, he didn't try finishing Moro off. Sage and another reason why I prefer the Kakarot from my timeline, and while he may be kind, he knows when to enjoy a battle and when to end it. With Kakarot continuing to enjoy the battle, I was starting to get angry as I want to find Mira, not fight this old goat man. When I was about to interfere and finish off Moro because Kakarot wouldn't, I noticed how the area around us seemed less vibrant than before. While that's not something I would usually notice since Moro has the name, Planet Eater, I made sure to pay attention to Namek just in case he didn't need to concentrate to absorb the energy of a planet, though I should have realized he didn't need to when I felt him absorbing the energy from my body. Sage you dumbass Kakarot, Moro's been absorbing the energy from the planet during the battle. Because of my shout, Kakarot looked over in our direction and Moro used that opening to attack him, causing him to get sent flying in our direction before stopping just before us. Moro you've caught on earlier than I would have liked, though that means I must speed up the process. Moro then raised one of his hands into the air and the process at which the planet's energy was getting absorbed vastly accelerated to the point where you can vividly see the vegetation losing any semblance of life. Seeing what Moro was doing, we no longer watched and went to attack him. I went for a kick, ex-Vegeta and ex-Kakarot transformed into an SSJ after becoming a true Saiyan and followed right after me. Vegeta and Kakarot stayed back and fired off key attacks while Trunks charged in with the Z sword. The moment I arrived in front of him, my foot was mere millimeters away from hitting his jaw, but right before it did a small portal formed in front of my foot, and as I was already too far deep into the kicking motion to stop, my foot went into the portal and came out from another portal hitting ex-Kakarot into the distance. I quickly pulled my leg back and fired a few key blasts to force Moro to block them while allowing ex-Vegeta and Trunks an opening to attack, but just like previously, portals appeared before every key blast, sending them back at me from all directions, though it did allow ex-Vegeta and Trunks to get close to him. However, when they attacked him, Moro suddenly flashed behind them, grabbing onto their necks before pulling out all of the ki in their bodies, causing them to instantly collapse onto the ground unconscious. While holding onto the spheres of ki, Moro stuffed them in his mouth, and the moment he did so, you could see him visibly gain his youth back. Though he didn't gain all of it, he still looked much younger than he previously did. Moro ha, this feels great, I haven't felt this young in a few million years. It looks like it's only a matter of time before I reach my prime now. Sage tsk, damn it. His power had increased by a considerable amount, but the real problem was that with the increase in his strength his ability to absorb energy increased as well. If things continue like this he will eventually reach his prime while we all get exhausted of our ki. Ex-Goku Sage, what happened to ex-Vegeta and Trunks? Sage Moro managed to absorb all of their ki, we need to get them out of here, they can't fight anymore. Vegeta easier said than done, with Moro hovering over their bodies, he's just waiting for us to do something like that and attack us while we can't defend. Goku but how do we get past his weird abilities? Whenever we attack him, he'll absorb our energy. Majin Bu can help. With the sudden arrival of someone new, we all look over and find Majin Bu standing beside Moro, who has been self-absorbed about himself this entire time, though Bu's arrival didn't go unnoticed by him. Moro HM, Majin Buu, you've changed since the last time I've seen you, but it doesn't matter, I can sense you have a plentiful amount of energy, how about you give me all of it? He tried absorbing Buu's energy, but that proved futile when Buu retaliated with his own magic beam, which had actually managed to injure Moro. Majin Buu then reached down grabbing a hold of X Vegeta and Trunks before teleporting beside us and laying them down. We were surprised why he was even here, but we didn't care much about that. Sage so then Buu, how can you help us? Majin Buu you make Buu scared, Buu don't want to talk with you, you do it. We were confused who he was talking to, but seeing Majin Buu's pink skin morph into another fat person that looked like a Supreme Kai gave us the only answers we needed. Sage Grand Supreme Kai. All of us were surprised about seeing the Grand Supreme Kai still alive, though with him somehow being connected to Majin Buu still, I guess that means he never did fully absorb him. Goku Grand Supreme Kai. Kaioshen had told me you were killed by Majin Buu, how are you still alive? GSK I wouldn't mind telling my story, however, this doesn't seem to be the best of times considering Moro has managed to escape and regain some of his power I sealed away. We then focus back on Moro whose face is filled with anger while looking at GSK, if I had to guess, I'd say they had some kind of history together. Moro so, after all these years GSK you're still alive, that's great, now I can personally get my revenge for having my magic power sealed away. Moro then charged right at us while throwing magic attacks. GSK since Moro still hasn't regained his full power, I'll still be able to counter his magic attacks, so while I do that you guys defeat him. We all nodded while powering back up and charging right at him, and when Moro's magic attacks were about to hit us, they got blocked by GSK's magic attacks that came from behind us. Knowing that GSK has our back, we stopped worrying about Moro's magic and focused right on Moro. Sage dealing with Moro shouldn't be too big of a deal, without his magic he isn't anything special. Just like what I had thought, with all four of us teaming up against him while his magic was being cancelled out by GSK, we made quick work of him, and within 2 minutes he was already kneeling over gasping for air, while also being covered in severe injuries. Moro this wasn't what was supposed to happen. I was supposed to return to my prime and stand atop the universe, that was my goal. This wasn't how she said things were supposed to play out, she lied. Sage stop whining, you've lost fool, and besides the outcome wouldn't have changed even if you had regained your prime. Grabbing him by the neck and lifting him up, I was about to kill, but I didn't plan on trying to disintegrate him using any key attacks as I didn't want him to pull some super secret move or something where he manages to absorb my attack and get stronger, it'd be annoying having to beat him up again. Goku Sage, what are doing? Sage giving him a nice massage, what does it look like I'm doing, I'm about to kill him. I could already tell Kakarot was about to give me a lecture about why I should spare Moro blah blah, and I didn't bother listening to his nonsense. Using my free arm, I aim my hand right where Moro's heart is and stab my hand straight through his chest while grabbing a hold of his beating heart before my hand exited from his back. Moro hee, so this is my end, pathetic. When I no longer sensed any life from him, I yanked my arm out, threw his corpse into the sky, and launched a galactic burst at it, causing his entire corpse to be disintegrated when they collided. I also destroyed his heart as well, better safe than sorry. Goku you didn't have to do that Sage, we could have locked him back up in prison. Sage you're right about that, how about this, if you ever manage to defeat me, you'll decide whether our enemies get to live or not, but until that day comes, I'll deal with them as I see fit. I could tell Kakarot wasn't too pleased with me, but I didn't care what he thought as I'm not about to let a powerful magic user who can absorb energy to strengthen himself roam freely if I can stop it, same with 21, however, I don't have much confidence in being able to truly kill her, though defeating her should be reasonable. Arriving next to X Vegeta and Trunks who had awoken towards the end of the fight, I sit down next to them and hand them a few of Nala's senzu beans that I luckily had in my pocket this time before leaving. Trunks well that was quite embarrassing but at least Moro's been taken care of, now we can fully focus and Tawa. X Vegeta tch, that was disgraceful for a warrior. Sage I'll agree with you on that, though now we can focus on the more important thing to deal with, Tawa. While Trunks, X Vegeta, and I were discussing about Tawa, the inhabitants of this planet started appearing on the horizon. When the Namekians got close they quickly arrived near both Kakarots and started showing their thanks. However, a portal suddenly appeared in the sky catching everyone's attention. Instantly we all stood up and prepared for another fight, but what we didn't expect was to see Jiren get sent flying out of the portal. He quickly stopped his momentum, but when he did, we got a good look at him and we were surprised at his condition, as he is covered in heavy injuries and barely had any ki left. Goku Jiren. Kakarot's shout caused Jiren to look over at him before looking all around. Jiren Goku, what are you doing here? Vegeta dash, we should be asking you that question as this is our universe. Though Jiren didn't get time to respond as he had to quickly block a key attack that came through the portal, and while he managed to do so, the force behind the attack sent him crashing into the ground, causing the entire area to violently shake. However, before any one of us went to go and check out Jiren, we suddenly sensed an incredibly evil and powerful key, but the thing that shocked me was that I've sensed this key before. Sage dash, Cumber. X Goku dash, Cumber. What the heck was he doing in Universe 10, and why is he here right now? Trunks dash, damn it, it has to be Tao's interference, otherwise, how could he just suddenly appear after Moro's defeat? X Vegeta dash, TCH, that bitch, always hiding like a coward. Shortly after we had sensed Cumber's key, we saw him step out of the portal looking the same as before, though now he wasn't wearing any shirt and the rune that was supposed to be on his chest had disappeared. When Cumber had fully stepped through the portal, it closed behind him while he was observing the surroundings, though his eyes stopped when he spotted me. Cumber dash, ha, finally I've found you, I've been searching for you for over a year, and now I can finally fight you again, and now that I'm back in control I'll be able to have a true fight with you. While his words annoyed me as he was a very strong opponent and I just wished to hunt after Tawa, however, a large smile couldn't help but form on my face in anticipation of the fight. Sage, now that my family has been reunited and everything is great, I can now finally fight to my heart's content. Taking off my bracers and storing them in my pockets, I make my way over to Cumber who had landed on the ground while walking past Jiren who had just gotten out of the crater with difficulty, though I didn't look over at him as I was focused on Cumber. Sage dash, Kakarotes, I suggest you guys teleport all of the Namekians to a different planet, this isn't going to be like the fight before with Moro. X Goku dash, ha, Sage is right, we won't be able to provide much help with a battle at this level, let's quickly take all the inhabitants to safety. X Vegeta dash, TCH, once again we're too weak. Vegeta dash, TSK, annoying. Goku dash, Namecanes come to grab my hand, we need to evacuate from the planet. Trunks dash, shit, we have to find Tawa or this will never end. Standing still across from Cumber doing nothing as I was trying to buy as much time as possible for the Namekians to leave since once the battle starts I can't be distracted with saving lives. However, Cumber wasn't one to wait for a fight when it was presented right before him, as he quickly launched himself at me with a feral grin on his face with incredible power. Smiling, as well as transforming into an LSSJ, I charge right at him and once we get close we collided against each other, causing the shockwaves to travel across the entire planet shaking it in the process. As we have a power struggle to fight for the victor, I eventually overpower him before coming in closer and kneeing him in the stomach before slamming him to the ground. Jumping into the sky, I fall back down on him with the intention of kneeing him in the chest just like what he did to me when we previously fought, though he managed to block the attack just before I came in contact with him. Leaping off him while dodging a key wave from his mouth, I land back on the ground and watch in the distance as Cumber comes rushing out of the ground while laughing like a maniac. Blocking one of Cumber's key hands, I fired several key blasts at him that he promptly blocked before closing in on me while preparing a kick in advance, putting up my arm to block it, but when he arrived right near me he suddenly flashed behind me. Smirking, I quickly covered my back in a thin layer of ki and when Cumber's foot touched my back an explosion went off engulfing both of us in it. Sage, I'm surprised I actually used this technique again, maybe in my free time I can master it. Blowing the smoke away that enveloped the area around us, I saw Cumber standing with minor injuries mainly on his leg, but even so, it didn't affect his combat ability much. Sage dash, come on Cumber, don't tell me this is all you've got, there is no way you haven't gotten stronger since the last time we fought? Cumber dash, ha ha ha, of course, I was just making sure you were still strong, now it's time for the true battle. By the time he finished talking, he had already formed a power ball in his hands and shot it into the sky. Once it reached the perfect altitude in the atmosphere it grew in size and started giving off huge amounts of Blutz waves. Across from me, I could see Cumber had already started the process of transforming into an Oozuru. I debated on whether I should transform but, I eventually decided why not have some fun. Sage, it's been a long time since I've been in my Oozuru state, why not enjoy a battle like that? Smirking, I looked up into the sky as well and I could feel my heartbeat start to violently increase. As I started growing into the Oozuru state I still had my pants on me as they were made to also fit this form, however, my fur was green instead of black like usual since I was still an LSSJ. Sage, it seems like the group finally managed to transport every living being on this planet, that's good as the battle is about to get several times more destructive. Once I had finished transforming, I didn't even get to let out a roar of enjoyment as Cumber's ki suddenly skyrocketed surpassing my full power by a wide margin. Turning serious, I look at him and see he's transformed into an SSJ while also being an Oozuru, pretty much a golden great ape, though I don't know whether I should be worried or excited about fighting him. Sage, why lie to myself? I get to fight someone stronger than me, of course, I'm excited. Snapping out of my thoughts, which I seem to do a lot in battle, I charged toward Cumber with a grin on my face that showed all of my sharp teeth. When I arrived near him, I went for a punch, and my fist managed to land on the side of his cheek, but it felt like I hit an immovable object. I was about to go for another attack, but when I pulled back my arm, I suddenly felt an intense pain in my stomach before I saw a golden fist slammed into the side of my face, sending me flying into the distance, crashing through several mountains in the process. Clutching the ground with my hands and feet to stop my momentum, though when I did I saw Cumber appear out of nowhere before releasing a ki wave from his mouth. I also counterattacked with a ki wave, though when they collided mine was instantly destroyed, prompting me to quickly cancel my ki wave and move out of the way to dodge the attack. However, even so, Cumber charged at me and we engaged in close combat. Though I was completely on the defensive, he was too fast and powerful for me to be able to fight back against. Even though I would try to retaliate when there was an opening, I would always miss and be forced to take a brutal attack for it in exchange. After a little longer of fighting with Cumber, I'm currently laying on the ground covered in blood and injuries, all while still in my Oozuru form. Cumber is currently standing atop me with no injuries whatsoever. Sage dash, come on, let's continue fighting. Cumber dash, your strength doesn't impress me anymore, I shall eliminate you like a warrior. I tried getting up, but most of my bones were broken. However, before Cumber's ki wave reached me, I saw both cockroaches suddenly appear beside me, and the next thing I knew I was in an entirely different area. Sage dash, that was a great fight.